what happens when you don't have enough water? What about when there's too much? Like in the case of a flood caused by hurricane rains. There are agencies of the state responsible for thinking about and planning for each of these scenarios. And on this fine Sunday, two are with us to answer the questions. I'm Adrian Atkinson. Thanks for making it Jamaica Magazine.
Don't let the heat beat you down. Extremely hot days can affect your health, causing heat stress and heat stroke. Protect yourself. Seek sheltering from the sun and limit outdoor activities to mornings and evenings. Wear light-colored, loose-fitting, breathable fabrics. Hydrate with cool water and avoid sweetened drinks and beverages that contain alcohol. Don't let the heat beat you down.
Every week we bring you the facts, straight, no chasers. It's that time again. This go-round we're talking about water conservation in the face of a seasonal drought.
Welcome to Get the Facts, the program that provides you with information on government's policies and initiatives. I'm your host, Enthros Campbell. Many of us will be aware of the decrease in rainfall as we have little or no water in our pipes. The grass is brown and we may have a shortage of some of our favorite crops. This usually happens in the period often called drought or dry spell. In our discussion today, we talk about drought and how we can better use the precious liquid water. Also, government's efforts to safeguard our health through its national water sector policy. Joining us is Managing Director, Water Resources Authority, Peter Clark. Mr. Clark, welcome to the program.
Yes, thank you.
So good to have you on, yes. Let us start with what exactly does the Water Resources Authority do? What's your role?
The Water Resources Authority is the government agency that is mandated by the Water Resources Act of 1995 to essentially manage Jamaica's water resources, to allocate the resources, to allow for its use in a manner that is sustainable well into the future. So we allocate, we do planning, and we do licensing of abstractors, all of the machinery around managing the water resources.
Okay, so what is the difference between what you do and what the National Water Commission does?
Okay, so the National Water Commission is a utility, and it is their job to produce water and to then sell that water to consumers. So their job is to provide a water supply. It is our job to manage the resources that the NWC and other people will be pulling from to deliver water, either for that domestic need or for an irrigation, agricultural need or commercial needs or whatever.
Okay, so how are you managing? Because we seem to have been having droughts for longer periods than in the past. How are you managing that process?
We've had periods of drought through the years. You've also, sometimes we've not had drought. So drought is not a new phenomenon. It's not new to us. We manage by way of, generally, the management is done through moderations, restrictions, and conservation.
So what are we experiencing now? Is it a drought or is it a dry spell?
No, we are experiencing a drought.
Why is that so?
The typical definition of a drought is when you have reduced rainfall, so an area is getting much less rainfall than it would normally get. Okay, so the fact is that we went through a dry period. Jamaica has 2 dry periods annually. Each year there are 2 dry periods. Now we went through a dry period from January into March. It was expected that we'd be getting the April-May rains, and we did not get the April-May rains. Once you get less than the normal amount of rain over an extended period, that is what you classify as a drought.
Okay, tell us about some of the plans that you have that will address this drought issue.
In the long term, we would have to be looking at moving water from where water exists in abundance to where it is greatly needed. The greater urban center of Kingston and Spanish Town going into Portmore has a great need for water. So what it would mean is that we'd have to move water from where it is in abundance to satisfy that area. Having satisfied that area with a population of roughly 3 million persons, and you're dealing with satisfying the needs of close to 1 million persons, what it would mean is that with one large, clearly it is large, with one large project or program, then you could satisfy a third of the demand that would be there on water. That is how you'd have to look at it. You'd have to look at it that it is not immediate. So that would be one of the long-term programs. Another one would be to look at, for instance, the matter of not depending so much on using fresh water for irrigation needs. Think of it that whenever a city, Kingston, for instance, as a city, uses over 50 million gallons of water each day. This water now becomes wastewater, and wastewater essentially is treated to such a degree that it can then be released into the environment. So if you can have the policy and have the program in place that this wastewater becomes water that can be used for other purposes, so that you can substitute the wastewater for clean, normal, fresh water that is being used for instance, for some industrial purposes or some agricultural purposes, then that would mean that you'd free up more fresh water to be used for the domestic needs and the very important needs that you would specifically need fresh, clean, potable water for.
So that is something we're actually working at now.
Yes, that's something that we have to first change a lot of mindsets. The public mindset that wastewater must just be dumped. So we have to change that public mindset. We have to have the buy-in from all of the policymakers and all of the stakeholders. And gradually they are coming around to the concept that there's worthy water embedded in wastewater. So they are coming around to that concept. And in collaboration with NEPA right now, we are re-examining the wastewater regulations so that we can make it easier, make it more acceptable to industries for the use of wastewater, even if it's just for irrigation of compounds and properties and so on, for irrigating orchard crops and the kind of agriculture, that people would find it very receptive and that it would be safe to use treated wastewater for the irrigation needs. We do have, for instance, brackish water, some rivers that are nearly brackish, and we can now make those produce fresh water from them. There is the seawater that we can also desalinate. We have high energy costs with all of these. With advances in technology, we are finding that we're being presented with solutions that may not draw so much on energy and may make it a whole lot more attractive to eventually go into desalination. We have other more immediate solutions that we're doing. We have the managed artificial recharge system out in St. Catherine, and there we're using excess irrigation water from the canal system that is not being used any water that is not being used immediately for the canals, then that water now is essentially injected back into the nearby aquifer to replenish the aquifer.
Let's take a break now. We'll come back with the discussion later. We take a break right now. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Practice good hygiene by washing your hands frequently using soap and water. Here's how you should do it while conserving water. Turn on the tap to wet your hands, then turn off the pipe. Lather your hands and the tap with soap. Turn on the tap and wash your hands, back, front, and in between fingers. Use some of the water to wash off the tap, then turn it off. Dry your hands with disposable hand towels. If you don't have running water, use a hand rub containing 62% or more alcohol. If hand sanitizers are not available, rubbing alcohol, Dettol, white rum, or household bleach will do the trick. And if all else fails, let hand washing and the handling of potable water be a two-person event. Each person will take turns pouring and washing hands with sitting water. Now is a good time to consider installing a tap on your containers to reduce the risk of water contamination. Faucets can be easily attached to drums, buckets, or 5-gallon water bottles. And to ensure that the outside of the containers are clean when recapping, disinfect it with hand rub containing alcohol that's 62% or more. The 5 R's of water conservation are also necessary to practice. Reduce water wastage by investing in water-saving devices. Reuse water at least twice before discarding. Replace leaking pipes, faucets, and other plumbing equipment. Recycle wastewater and use it for gardening, car washing, or cleaning of public spaces. And reclaim water through rainwater harvesting. We all must play our part to ensure there's water to combat the coronavirus and stave off prolonged drought.
Welcome back to Get the Facts. We're talking about droughts and water conservation with Peter Clark, who is the Managing Director at Water Resources Authority. Mr. Clark, let us start with, what are some of the parishes that are most affected?
The parishes that are most affected by drought now are the eastern and central parishes. So essentially, everything from Moran Point all the way over to just west of Mandeville are all those areas are experiencing drought at this time.
Okay.
There is very low rainfall, and that is the result.
Okay, during this period, tell us what are some of the methods we should be using to conserve water?
We've always promoted for the conservation of water, well, first of all, to cultivate a mindset regarding the conservation of water, to not waste water. The measures that can be used will be to install low water use taps that use low water, but still provide you with some amount of pressure at the tap outlet. The installation of low flush toilets. So the average householder can do these very simple measures and help with the conservation of water.
Okay. Tell us now about the National Water Sector Policy. What is it? What are the goals, and how is that going now?
Okay, so the National Water Sector Policy has a very simple mantra, which is to manage water resources in order to provide for social, economic, and environmental well-being now and into the future. And this dovetails quite nicely with the goals of the Water Resources Authority. Because here at the Water Resources Authority, we manage water resources for those very same purposes, for the purposes of social, economic, and environmental well-being. So it strongly mimics our own goals. And that in one sentence would be the goal of the Water Sector Policy of 2019. This replaces a previous Water Sector Policy of 2004.
You had said earlier there's a recommendation to move water from other parishes into St. Catherine, especially Portmore and so on. How do we decide how to do that? And how do we know that we won't be taking too much water from one place to the next?
All right. How do we decide how to move water from one catchment basin into another? That is exactly the job of the Water Resources Authority. This is what we're experts at. What we do is we monitor rivers, we monitor streams, we monitor the groundwater all over the island. So we're able to determine where there is an abundance and where there's a reliable amount of water. So what you first need is a source that is reliable, that doesn't react to droughts and dry times as much. And we found rivers on the north in St. Anne that fit exactly that model. So what you now need to do is is determine what are the immediate needs and the future needs, do the math and the science of those needs and compare it to what is available. And we've done that, and it has been based on that. That is why we would promote the concept of moving water from, say, the White River and from, say, the Rio Bueno into all the way to Kingston. There are other rivers that may be further out, but in terms of proximity, these would be the closest that we would target first. Granted, you're talking about major investment to make it happen, but at the end of the day, it is a part of the greater solution.
Is the cause of drought, is it just lack of rainfall, or is it that we are not managing the water that we have properly?
Drought is all about a lessening of rainfall compared to what you'd normally get. And then it is now for all of us who are players in the wider scheme to manage the water resources, to make us as resilient to the drought as possible, and put us in a position to withstand the drought for as long as is necessary.
Right. But how bad is the drought this year?
I would say it's bad when we look at the rain, the precipitation figures, and when we look at the stream flows. Where we are now this year, we're a little bit worse off than where we were going into July last year. So it is a little bit worse.
Okay, so some parishes are experiencing drought, others have water. So would you recommend that persons in the other parishes that are not having drought conditions, they should also conserve on water?
I will recommend every day that everybody conserves water, whether we are getting an abundance of rainfall or not. Because at the end of the day, the water that is not used or not, the water that is not consumed remains available for some future need. So I would always recommend that.
People would say that every year we have the same drought problem. Are we really trying to address it?
Yes, we're trying to address it. For the first time in a very long time, I think, because we had a very bad drought, I would say, back in 2015, and also I think earlier in 2012. We have formulated a very strong drought management council, and we are looking actively at not just talking about drought, but encouraging the policy and the platforms that will build out structures, that will build out programs, that will build out projects that will help to make us a lot more resilient.
All right, your water policy speaks to access to water for everyone. When are we projecting for that to happen?
Well, the projection is to dovetail with the Vision 2030. So 2030, we would want to see Jamaica well into the path of, or well into the realm of sustainability and environmental sustainability, and benefiting from economic gains and everything. And the water sector policy is dovetailed to that. So currently the water sector policy is promoting universal access to water by 2030.
Joe, thank you so very much for that piece of information. This has been Get the Facts. Our guest was Peter Clark, Managing Director at Water Resources Authority. We may not have any control over droughts. The good thing, though, is that they occur in specific periods of the year, so we can always plan ahead. Conserve on water supplies where you can, and always have some stored up for the not-so-rainy days. We also want to support the achievement of Sustainable Development Goal 6, which is water and sanitation for all by 2030. Let's work together to achieve this goal, because together we can. Until next time, when Get the Facts brings you more information that you need to know, I'm Rose Campbell. Thanks for watching and take good care.
If a hurricane were to strike the island tomorrow, are you prepared? Well, government is. As you'll see next, a plan has been laid out to ensure the country can respond effectively to the threat of a storm or hurricane, should the island face such a system during this Atlantic hurricane season.
The forecasters are predicting a busy Atlantic hurricane season in 2020. The latest forecast from the National Hurricane, Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, predicts a likely range of 13 to 19 named storms, of which 6 to 10 could become hurricanes. The forecast includes 3 to 6 major hurricanes. And when we say major hurricanes, we mean category 3 or higher. In fact, there have already been 2 named storms even before the season has officially begun. And we have seen Arthur and Bertha. So you can see that there is a strong likelihood for an above normal season in terms of hurricane and storm activity. All committees of the council and parish disaster committees that were already activated and engaged in the COVID-19 response need to remain on high alert for the hurricane season. The OPM, that has national responsibility for disaster response, must ensure that adequate relief resources are in place to respond to any eventuality, and that arrangements are made to procure additional supplies. The government is moving to strengthen the capacities of the municipal corporations with adequate supplies. Shelter operations are of particular importance to the government, given the COVID measures of social distancing and the potential for the spread of the virus and the impact on the most vulnerable in our society. And when we say the most vulnerable, we're talking now about our older citizens and our citizens that have comorbidities, certain illnesses, particularly diabetes, hypertension, obesity. Municipal corporations and other response actors at the local level must accelerate the re-inspection of shelters. And I know Minister Mackenzie has been doing this and is spending quite a bit of time and effort to ensure that our shelters are up to date, including regular sanitization of the shelters and ensuring that they are properly equipped. Protecting our most vulnerable remains the priority of the government for the 2020 Atlantic hurricane season, and the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development, with portfolio responsibility for disaster risk management, must continue to engage and ensure all necessary measures are taken. Special guidelines for shelter operations and emergency operations are being finalized by OPM and the Ministry of Health and Wellness, and will be provided to all relevant entities. I am directing all entities to ensure their continued heightened readiness and preparedness actions following the guidance of the Ministry of Health and Wellness and OPM. The National Emergency Operations Center will continue its coordination role to facilitate a whole-of-government approach, including our private sector and NGO partners. Each parish emergency operations center, ministry and agency emergency operations center is directed to activate 24 hours in advance of a pending storm or hurricane and coordinate activities with the OPM or the National Emergency Operating Center. COVID-19 has tested our emergency systems and response readiness. The government applauds our frontline workers and emergency management personnel for their hard work and dedication under the most challenging circumstances. Like we have done for the pandemic, our strategy must be to anticipate, plan, and prepare for the threat, and not to panic. Let me repeat that, and not to panic.
You've asked for it, and now it's here. The Jamaica Information Service has updated its mobile app. It's easier to navigate, loads even faster than before, talking about top speed, operates seamlessly across platforms, and we're a creative bunch, so it's much easier on the eyes. Now you have quick and easy access to news stories, television and radio features, and a variety of photos right at your fingertips. And you'll get push notifications when new content is uploaded. Download the app on your Apple and Android devices now and get news you can use. Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica on the go.
Before we part company today, I want to encourage you all to rise up. The festival wind is starting to blow through the land, and as we do every year, Jamaica Magazine is bringing you the finalists. Today, it's time for the legendary Toots and the Maytals to make their bid for our festival affections.
Hey! Singing. Singing. Eternal Father, bless our land with justice, truth, and rights. See all those little children walking on the sidewalk, singing festival songs. Won't you rise up, Jamaica? Stand up, Jamaicans, with love and justice for all. Let us build our nation from the foundations of love, of love. I say, rise up, Jamaicans, stand up and take a stand. We are all God's people. Hey, we should live as one. They say Jamaica is overpopulated, so we must be creative in our sunshine land. We should be in a hurry to gain our victory from humanity. So I got to say, rise up, Jamaicans, stand up and take a stand. We are all God's people.
Keep rising, but we're wrapping things up for today. Jamaica Magazine returns tomorrow, but as usual, you don't have to wait for more content like this. Head over to the JI's YouTube channel and our website, jis.gov.jm, and connect with us. We're on all the social media platforms. Until our next live link-up, I'm Adrian Atkinson saying thanks for your company. Be safe, maintain social distance, and always wear a mask when you're in public.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.